Most people describe worrying as overthinking, as if the problem is simply having too many thoughts or getting caught in endless what-if scenarios. So the natural response is to treat it like a thinking problem. You try to answer the thoughts, challenge them, reassure yourself, and solve them mentally so they go away. But if you've ever noticed, this approach doesn't really hold. Because even when you understand your thoughts, even when you can see they don't fully make sense, the worrying often continues anyways. That's usually where confusion starts. Because worry isn't just thinking too much. It's a very specific mental process. And it tends to take the form of internal verbal thinking, right? Questions, predictions, imagined scenarios, almost always focused on uncertain future events. So the mind moves away from what is happening now and starts constructing possible futures. What if something goes wrong? What if I made a mistake? What if I can't handle it? Now, first, this doesn't feel like a problem. In fact, it can feel useful. It feels like your mind is preparing you, scanning ahead, trying to reduce uncertainty before it arrives. That's why worry is so persistent. It doesn't initially feel irrational. It feels like effort, like responsibility, problem solving. And in a way, that's exactly how you experience it. Many people genuinely report that worry helps them think things through or prepare for outcomes. But something important changes once that process begins. Because worry doesn't stay as simple as problem solving. It becomes a sustained internal loop, continuous stream of verbal thought that keeps generating more possibilities, questions, scenarios. And as that happens, something important occurs in the background. Your attention gets pulled into it, not just observing the thoughts, but staying inside them. It's like your attention is held hostage by these thoughts. And when attention becomes locked in this internal stream of worry, it starts consuming your working memory. That's the mental space you use for concentration, decision-making, and control. So as your worry occupies more of that space, less is available for anything else. This is why it becomes harder for you to focus on work, conversations, or tasks when you're worrying. The issue is not that the thoughts are somehow stronger than you. It's that your attentional system is no longer fully available. Once attention is captured like this, another process begins. The mind starts to treat worry as something that needs to be monitored. So even when you try to focus somewhere else, part of your attention stays internally engaged, checking, replaying, anticipating. Worrying generates threat-focused thinking. Your attention stays attached to that thinking. The sense of threat increases. An increased threat pulls your attention back even more strongly. So the process begins to sustain itself. Not because it's correct or useful, but simply because your attention keeps going to it. And over time, this becomes even more automatic. Your mind starts to default to where uncertainty appears. Instead of shifting your attention outwards, it shifts it inward. Analysis, prediction, simulation. This inward shift changes the quality of your thinking itself. It becomes more conceptual, more verbal, more abstract. Language by its nature keeps generating new steps, new questions, new possibilities, which means your mind rarely reaches a natural stopping point, so your worry continues. Not because it's solving anything, but because it's organized in a way that perpetuates itself. Now, as your attention turns inward, it becomes more self-focused. And instead of processing the outside environment, your attention begins evaluating your internal states, your thoughts, your reactions, feelings. And that self-focus narrows your attention further. When your attention narrows, your mind becomes more sensitive to threat-related interpretations. So even small things begin to feel more significant. The situation may not have changed, but it's now being processed through a much narrower attention lens. And this is the part of why worry can escalate. The external circumstances may be the same, but your attention becomes increasingly locked on internally generated threat. And when your attention stays locked like this, the experience starts to feel uncontrollable, automatic, because your system keeps returning to it over and over again. This is the key point. Worry is not only a thinking process, it is an attentional process. And that distinction matters a lot. Because if your attention keeps returning to internally generated thought, then worry will continue to dominate your life. But if your attention can be trained to disengage and shift, then worrying begins to lose that dominance. And this is where the attention training program comes in. Not by trying to argue with every thought or replace or suppress your worry, but by changing what your attention does while those thoughts are present. So instead of engaging internally, your attention is directed outward to sounds, spatial locations, to the external world. And then deliberately shifted and expanded and controlled. During this process, your worry doesn't disappear. It still appears in the background, but it's no longer the center of your attention. Imagine that. You begin to experience something different. Your worry can be present without taking over your mind, without pulling your attention into it, and without determining where your mind goes next. And over time, that changes the relationship entirely. The thoughts still appear, but your attention doesn't follow them automatically. Sounds great. I hope it sounds great. At this point, it's worth noticing something specific. Understanding worry like this can change how you see it, but in real situations, you don't get to pause and analyze what's happening. The worry doesn't show up as a concept you can study. It shows up as a shift in your attention, and it happens automatically before you've even noticed it. That's the real distinction here. Knowing that worry is a form of attentional capture is very useful. But the ability to actually change what your attention does in real time is something totally different. That is a trained skill. And that's exactly what my attention training program is designed for. Not to give you more insight into thinking, but to develop your ability to redirect your attention when it gets pulled into internal processes like worry. So the important question isn't just whether you understand this. It's whether your attention can stay flexible when this mechanism or process is happening. Because that flexibility is what determines whether worry runs automatically in your background or whether it gradually loses its grip on your thinking over time. That is where our work continues. So if you'd like to work on this directly, I've created a complete attention training program. It's in the members section of the channel, and it includes full training exercises, background, rationale, common mistakes, and practical applications to worry, rumination, anxiety, and other pretty bad thinking patterns. If you're interested in developing stronger control over your attention and changing your relationship to these processes, please consider joining and working through the program with us.